Hi, good evening. Welcome to Perseverance Theater's Black Alaskan Art Matters conversation number 2. I'm Leslie Isha, the artistic director here at Perseverance Theater, and it's my honor and pleasure to open this conversation. But as you know, we always start with our land acknowledgement. So it's my honor and pleasure to invite you to join us in offering deep gratitude to the Occoquan and Toccoquan peoples of the areas around and including what is now known as Juneau, Alaska. It is all Tlingit Ani, Tlingit land, which has been stewarded by the Tlingit people since time immemorial. We also ask you to join us in finding ways to recognize, honor, and enact this in all you do in these beautiful Tlingit homelands. We also invite you to join us in honoring and expressing deep gratitude to the Dena'ina peoples of South Central Alaska, where we also conduct our work in Anchorage, Alaska. Join with us in finding ways to recognize, honor, and enact this acknowledgement in meaningful ways as well. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Natives have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of Alaska. One cannot be without the other. To love Alaska and call it home requires honoring this truth. Alaska is and always has been a Native place. It is our responsibility to act accordingly. As a creative company, we are committed to learning from, meaningful, including holding space and strengthening our work with Alaska Native peoples. We know their brilliance, vibrant languages, cultures, ways of life, and relationships with all aspects of their worlds bring knowledges and understandings we cannot know or access without their consent or partnership. We seek to build a right relationship with the Native peoples of Alaska because it will make our work better and because it is the right thing to do. Perseverance Theater honors the cultures, traditions, languages, and the resilience of all Alaska Native and Indigenous Native ancestors, elders, and their descendants, past, present, and future. Perseverance Theater also remains committed to our continuing processes of decolonizing and indigenizing our spaces to liberate ourselves in our spaces with self-education, relationship building, and organizational cultural change, all in service of justice. Gunashish and Chinan Geli. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It is my honor and pleasure again to bring forth this Black Alaskan Art Matters initiative that we started in response to the Black Lives Matter movement that was going on well before the current uprisings. And we wanted to have a deeper, meaningful Black-led initiative. So we took our time, and wonderfully so, we identified and were able to bring forth in collaboration and partnership 3 curators, Mahogany Magnetic, Amable Rosa, and our 3rd curator, who is our wonderful host for this evening's conversation, Alyssa Quinton. Alyssa has been volunteering with local, statewide, and national organizations and forming those ties to the grassroots communities for over a decade. From that work, she's focused her political and communal outreach to support campaigns in a variety of positions, from internships to community outreach coordinator. Alyssa graduated from the University of Fairbanks, Alaska, with a degree in political science, and now uses her organizing skills and passion to focus on communal advocacy, outreach, education, and empowerment. Since being hired as the interior organizer in 2018, Alyssa has expanded her connections and helped support the work of the many diverse communities in and around Fairbanks. When she's not working, Alyssa can be found showcasing in a First Friday, playing music. I know she's also a painter. She does watercolor, finding and expressing the essence of her subjects. And with her friends, she's always enjoying her art making. but when she has quiet time, she has the cutest dog in existence, she says, that she loves to spend time with. So please, please give a warm virtual welcome to Alyssa Quinton, one of our curators for the Black Alaskan Art Matters Initiative. Hi, Alyssa, welcome, and thank you so much for being our host this evening.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me again and such a wonderful intro.
Beautiful. Well, I will leave you to have a fantastic conversation. I'll be watching, I'll be tuning in too with all of our guests. Thank you to all of our guests who are tuning in, by the way. And at the end, I'll come back and I'll just share some announcements. We have an exciting week here to get out the vote. And we're calling it Voice the Vote because we have some spoken word artists and musicians and civic leaders that you all know and respect, some elders with us this coming week, as well as a great partnership with our friends in Houston, the Writer's Block. So with that, I will give those announcements at the end, but please, Alyssa, thank you again for hosting, and the floor is yours. Take it away.
Well, of course, thanks, Leslie. Well, hi, everyone. Good evening. Again, my name is Alyssa Quinton, and we are joined here with our visual artists that had submitted to the Black Alaskan Art Matters exhibition, and I'm so happy and honored to be joined with some fellow visual creatives. So come on in to the room, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we want to give a special shout out to our other visual creative, Tina, having some technical difficulties, but we are here with you virtually, and you are here with us virtually from afar, and we'll probably see if we can get her to join at another time when we can sort of figure out, but if not, definitely in the conversation with us in spirit. So I just want to hand it off to you two to introduce yourselves in whatever way seems fit.
Nose goes.
Okay, I'll go first. Brianna Annette. Brianna Mani, Brianna, what big of Carluta, Perseverance Theatre. Finga piugo nga nunakaw yak miunga, the guam mani in Krajami we taklo, then in Naramut yut nunatni. Panikan cook nukas param su panika nga, unistem tashu, Dr. Gangalung Paljanam, Angoy Aluk Martina Janam Plutit Kakaka, Nunako Yakmingalut, Early Richardson, Samuel Shilzam Plutit Kakaka, Greenville, Mississippi, Mingalutik. Hello, everybody. My name is Biuk Shields, originally from Tuxuk Bay, from the Kaluyarmi people. I am Yupik and Black. I'm the granddaughter of the late Chief Dr. Paul John and Martina John of Tuxuk Bay, and also the granddaughter of the late Erlene Richardson and the late Samuel Thomas Shields of Greenville, Mississippi. Also, I'm the daughter of Samuel Shields Jr. and Dr. Bunny Kakagatha John Shields. And I'm so thankful that you guys created this space for us so our art could be seen and featured. And I just wanted to thank the Dena'ina people and the Akaquan and the Takaquan because they've all helped me become who I am. Not to you, Annette.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Annette Alfonsi. I am half Haitian, half Italian, and so currently seen as half Black. And I moved to Alaska when I was about 5 years old and grew up in Bethel, which is a Yupik area, and now live in Anchorage, which is stewarded by the Dena'ina people. When I learned about this particular exhibit, someone actually invited me to be a part of it, and I didn't know if I should even try, just because my whole life I've been told I'm too white to be Black and too Black to be white. And so I just really appreciate the idea that this space is for all of us, and it's not like an all or nothing kind of a thing, and intersectional identity exists in Alaska, I think in a lot more than in some other places. And so I remember emailing and being like, is it cool if I join? It's okay. Sorry to bother you. I'll just go. And you were so welcoming and inviting. And I'm really excited to find a space as an artist where I can feel like the voices are similar and the perspective is similar. And it's the first time as an artist I really feel really welcomed. So I just want to say thank you very much for that.
So nice to hear that you grew up in Bethel. I grew up in Bethel too.
Yeah. Oh, how fun. That's awesome.
It is a small world. Small world. Well, thank you all so much. It's very heartwarming to hear that, this was really welcoming to you, because I feel that as well of, when you're submitting online, you're never really sure, if you as yourself and as your art, is going to be accepted. And so I'm really grateful that we were able to create the space that we actually need in this town and in this state and in general, all over the place, everywhere. BAM's taking over. So I want to ask both of you, for the audience, what kind of art do you do?
Well played, madam. So, so I was a passenger in a rollover car accident years ago with a reckless driver, and I had not done art in a really long time, and I make jewelry. This is what I've made most recently, is this style. Can you see it? It's called a cha-cha style. So it's a lot of little pieces that come all together. And the bracelets and the necklaces, when you wear them and as they move, they kind of go ch-ch-ch-ch. So that's why it's called the cha-cha style. And I went back to it just partly to kind of find myself a little bit, but partly as a way to be able to do some therapy at home, because physical therapy was all about like reps and sets and weights, and it was completely sanitized from reality. And so it took a while for me to find someone that I could really work with, and they rewrote my goals. So my goals were around my jewelry and around cooking and being able to get back into the kitchen. And so when I lost some strength and dexterity in my hands, I went back to jewelry making, and it just brought back all the memories of learning how to bead in Bethel when I was growing up, and some of the kind of cultural revitalization classes that we had taken to try to bring back some traditional practices. And so now I make beadwork again. And from there, I just kind of have been developing my own style. I want to respect that if I'm at the same kind of show as someone who is an Alaska Native Indigenous artist, I don't want to be selling the same thing that they're selling. So I want to respect that. So I've been kind of making the cha-cha style, and each one piece is not a lot, it's like one head pin with some beads. But when you start doing 200 of them, then it starts like doing some strength training. So that's how I got started with it.
No, I realized I was muted. So the kind of work that I do, it's my most favorite or most common medium is sealskin, like you could see on my earrings. It all started when I was like a little girl, watching my grandmother sew all the time. I used to sit there and watch her bead and sew all day. I'd ask a lot of questions. Eventually my grandpa told me that when they stop, if the elders don't want to talk to you, then they won't answer you and you should stop asking questions. So, but I never learned that yet. But mostly sewing, but recently I've got into jewelry making. So like earrings, bracelets. I've made hair pieces. They're called dakuks, like actually have a piece here, right? Like this. The bead dangles. A lot of my inspiration comes from my grandmother and my Yupik heritage here. And I do a lot of skin sewing and I paint sometimes. I like to do a little bit of everything. I like to learn. Um, I grew up a lot around my grandparents because my father, when he was young, the last of our language, there was only 7 words left, and it was his uncle Henry who kept those words. But to keep our family safe, he was told not to listen to Uncle Henry, and so that's why my parents and my father, who's originally from Greenville, Mississippi, who married this Yupik woman all the way in Alaska. Um, that's why he was very, very insistent that I learn about my Yupik culture and to keep my Black culture along with me.
And what's the favorite thing about the work that you do? So one thing that you can sort of pinpoint that kind of fills your cup when you see your work.
Okay, you got me. So my favorite thing is whenever I try something new, um, my elders or someone else's grandparents or even people who I'm around, like my teasing cousins, all my teasing cousins, you know who you are because there's a bajillion of you guys. Um, they encourage me, and there are some people that put you down because it's art, and everyone has their own opinion, but when we bring back these things that people don't haven't been able to do because of our history in Alaska, and really there's a lot, but my favorite thing is when it brings people happiness to see things that they haven't seen in a while. Like I made ugly rutuk, where the bead goes under your jaw. Um, and an elder was like, "Oh yeah, I remember we used to use those," and they started talking about them, and I've started seeing people using them, and so I'm really excited about all the happiness that it brought. Um, I think that's my favorite part.
For me too, it's definitely bringing joy. And I asked my mom to pick this up real quick. So this is the first thing that I beaded after the accident that I was in, and it's with teeny tiny beads. And my goal was to do 2 beads per day because that's all I could do sometimes. And sometimes I'd go a week without beading anything, and sometimes I would be able to do a lot at a time. And now the pain of that years ago has passed, but the beautiful pin is still here, so the beauty is still here even though the pain is gone, or the memory of that has faded. And so that's something that I really like is from the kind of disability perspective or the healing perspective, and even also culturally healing, the idea that the pieces can last, and whatever's happening right now, the pieces can bring joy. And so the amount of pain versus joy, the joy can be magnified in the world. And I really like that a lot. And people, like, I never thought of selling my art until people said you should do that. And so I didn't value myself as an artist. I just thought that I was kind of just messing around with stuff and I wasn't really good at it. And as I have kept going, I've realized that's how a lot of people think, and a lot of people don't realize how important it is to do art, that it doesn't have to be your bread and butter for it to matter, and for it to have value, and for it to bring joy. And so I hope that my little pieces can kind of get folks thinking about that.
Which I think is a wonderful segue, into the next sort of question that I want to offer you to. I know that when Perseverance Theater, was talking about this project, I knew for me, and why I agreed to be a curator is because, I wanted to, really create a space for, the the vastness of Blackness and Black people and Black creatives here in this state, and what that would potentially mean, not just for our own communities, but for folks outside of our communities, to sort of get that perspective and that ability to connect and understand us a little bit better. So I'm curious, what made you to finally make that decision to submit? What was it that little voice in your head? Was it something similar to that? Was it, I'm just going to take a chance and see what happens?
I got to get better at that. So I like how we're switching off who goes first. That's very nice. So you asked a couple of questions, and then I got distracted by nose goes. So I think that for me, some of my advocacy work has been based on being fearless. So I'm the state project partner for Unmasking Brain Injury, where people who have experienced any kind of traumatic or acquired brain injury make a mask with an explanation of their art to share what it feels like to live with a brain injury. And so a lot of people said, oh, I have a story, but I'm not an artist. I can't do a mask. And I'm like, you can share your story. You can share your story with art. And so it's been great to kind of get folks to try to be creative and embrace their creative side. And then I also do a disability awareness art show, which is happening right now at Denali Graphics and Frame. Shameless plug. And so with that, it's just always based on the ask that the worst thing someone can do is say no, and then your life hasn't changed. So it's worth it. It's worth the risk. And so that's what kind of got me to submit here and to not be afraid, to not have a fear mindset. And there's a lot of risk to try to do something with your art when we've kind of been conditioned that our art means our worth or our sales mean our value. And that's not what art is about. That's not the essence of being creative and the essence of getting our art in the world, you know? And so for me, it was worth the risk, because the worst thing that anyone can do is say no.
Brianna Annette. So my reason is not as deep as yours, but so it was. I'm on this Facebook group called Black Folks in Alaska, and I saw Mahogany post about Black Alaskan Matters project and how they're looking for artists, and I was sitting there thinking about it, and then the deadline was, I think, a week away, and then the deadline was the day of, and I was still looking at it, and I was like, man, I should try, maybe I should try, and I was like, maybe not. And I was really nervous. I was really, really nervous because I grew up a lot around my aunties and uncles and village, and really immersed in my Yupik culture. And like, I realized I hadn't had a lot of time to be around my Black family. And especially living in Bethel, you know, there's not a lot of Black people. I'm sure if I showed you a picture of my dad, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen him, one of the 5 Black people that lived there before, but there's more Black people there now, which is great, which is very great. He was actually, I think, maybe like the second Black person in my village, aside from my auntie, who is my auntie through my mom's side. But I was looking at it and I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, am I even Black enough to do this? Which is a crazy question, right? Very, very crazy question. And then I remembered my grandpa said, you won't stop being Yupik, just the same as he also said, you won't stop being Black no matter how many times I wash, no matter how many times I go to my village, or no matter how many times I eat my native food. You know, no one's gonna take this Black part away from me. And so I think it was like 2 days or 3 days after the deadline had passed, I messaged Mahogany and I was like, is there still time? Can I still try? and like it took the courage after the fact and like thinking about it for a while. Like I had like a whole identity crisis happening in my head for like a whole week. But at the end, I was thinking about my dad, and he would have been so proud of me. He has dementia, and so he can't really talk to us, but I know he would have been like, "Good job. Why were you scared?" And so I think, and I'm thinking about all of my Afro Inuit, Afro Yupik people, and I wanted to see them, I wanted to have them see there's someone here that's like them, and they could show their work too.
For what it's worth, I also had a bit of an identity crisis that I talked about earlier, where I was like, should I, shouldn't I? So I actually really appreciate knowing I wasn't the only one. And I think it's really important that we can kind of reclaim who we are with something like this.
And I'm so happy that both of you did. This was a huge conversation with the other curators of how, do we best encompass and, make people, regardless of whatever their identity within this vastness of Blackness, feel like they do have, a space and a place here in this exhibition and in the community in general. And so I think you kind of got the next question that I was going to ask, but if I could flip it a little bit, what would you love to see more of in the Black community to make it more welcoming? Because I feel that identity crisis too, being West Indian and being Black, but being a different type of Black. It's not quite the same, and so you're never quite sure if you're going to be treated the same, if you're going to be looked the same, included in the same conversations. And there's definitely conversations that I step away from because I recognize, I'm not a Black American. And so there's things that, I don't know or wouldn't experience yet, or I have a completely different perspective because, my family just comes from a different area, and all of those things happen differently. So what would you love to see, in our community that, would sort of make this existing in your own skin and your own identity, exactly what it needs to be, make it a beautiful experience, not a confusing or, anxiety producing experience.
I think for me, my biggest thing was that when I'm home at my village, there's so many people that are there to uplift me and say, "Hey, of course you're Yupik, duh. What do you mean? When you're in this crisis of like, who am I?" And it happens a lot. I'm sure just not within our Black communities, but I really I really wish that we took a lot more time to say, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you go, you are still Black. You are still this Black queen and Black king. We have this rich culture and this history that was hurtful before, but we have all of this beauty, and I feel like I wish we could say more. Say, I mean, I'm sure we do, but I wish it could just be melded in all of our heads, and um, especially growing up in such a small community with a lot of Yupik people and not many Black people. Um, I think things like this, Black Alaskan Art Matters project and the movement for Black Lives Matter, it really did uplift me um, as a Black person. It really, really did, because for a little bit when I first moved here, I was 16. I didn't realize I was Black. I knew my dad was, which is weird, right? I knew my dad was, but when I lived at home, I was always told, "Oh, you're Yupik. Oh, you're Yupik," and they knew I was Black too. But I always heard, "Oh, you're Yupik," because they heard me speak my language and they'd be confused. But yeah, I think I wish there was more. And I'm sure we're in that path because with all the work that's happening for the Black community. But for me, I wish there was more representation in my communities where I grew up of a strong Black woman. And luckily, I had my dad, who's a very strong Black man. But I wish I had more representation. Um, but I grew up in a small community, which is hard to have that. But I think I'm still on my path of learning about who I am and my Black heritage and my Black identity. And so I think this was a very great step for me.
Ditto. No, just kidding. No, just kidding. I'll say more than that. But yeah. My I had similar kind of experiences, and for me, it's kind of compounded because I was born in Puerto Rico, and my parents met in Okinawa. So it's just we're from all over, and I don't know if you know about the radio show back in the day called Latin Slant. My parents did that show in Bethel, and it was all Latin music in the YK Delta region, and so that was really fun. But and just to let you know, my dad also had dementia years ago, so so I am feeling for you and sending good vibes. But so often, I think I love what you said about lifting each other up. And to me, what that means is not forcing us to prove our Blackness, because that's what I've seen happen so often. And either I am not Black enough, or on the flip side, in other areas, I'm painted as Black. And so when I grew up, I went to West, which was super diverse. And then I went to college, which was, oh yeah, legit? Oh my gosh. We got to chat later after this panel. But but I went to a primarily white college, and outside of Alaska, and somebody, like multiple people, would say something about me being Black, and I was like, oh, I did not realize I was Black to you because I'm mixed. And so it was the first time, the kind of the big experience that I had of being painted one way or the other. And so for me, it really shaped my identity, and it shaped some of the kind of issues that I have around ethnicity and identity, and self-doubt around identity. And I think some of that has to do with having to prove how Black we are, or people not acknowledging the mixed part. And so what I would like to see in the Black community, or in general, in the community in general, is the spaces where mixed people can be just as welcome, because there are more and more of us, and we're not going anywhere. And every year there's even more. And so embracing that as having value, and embracing that as real, that it doesn't have to shift. I don't have to be a chameleon anymore, that in one space I'm white and in another space I'm Black. I would love to just always be able to be brown and not have to be white or Black. And that would be really, I think, lighten it. I could breathe easier, literally. I could just let go of that kind of burden of having to fit in, or having to present a certain way, or I don't know if I'm saying it right, but just being able to be myself and not have to worry about whether or not it's enough. And so I've started shifting my perspective, and I'm on that journey right now myself. But instead of thinking of myself as half, which is potentially like not as good either way, like I am doubly awesome because I am both. And it's kind of a different perspective, but I'm still figuring that out.
It's funny that you say, you went to West. My earliest memories of going to West is people saying, what are you? And I'd say, oh, I'm Yupik. And they'd be like, what's that? And I'd be like, I'm Native. And then they'd be like, and and me voicing that, saying, "Oh, and my dad's Black," and they'd say, "And you too." But that's something that it made me think of when you were talking. But I totally agree. I wish people can be comfortable with just saying, "Oh, I'm both," and just and people understanding that it's okay to be both. You don't have to just be one.
Right, absolutely. And someone's comment that people have been having to deal with that for a really long time. And I think a lot of healing has happened in the very recent history compared to a lot of the issues that happened throughout history. And I think the next step could be acknowledging those of us who are mixed. And I think I agree with you that we're getting there, that we're on that step, and this exhibit is one of those steps.
I didn't even realize there was a comment section.
Yeah, it sort of pops up on the screen sometimes, but I mean, yeah, I'm completely have to take a breath there. Just, I feel that too of, obviously very dark skin. Obviously people look and they're like African American. I'm like, close, but not really. It's like, try more, go east, and then you'll hit it eventually. So I feel you, and I think that it's so important to say that. We have come a long way, but our communities have a long way to continue and a long way to go. And it's so great to be on this journey with both of you. How do you think art can sort of make that process and that learning and unpacking and unlearning a little bit better for us as creatives?
So if it's okay if I go first. So for me, it's I have a slightly different lens because I also do the Disability Awareness Art Show. And the first time I ever did this, we're doing our third year now with Denali Graphics and Frame. And the first year, so to participate, people just need to have any connection in any way to any disability at any time. And so the point is when people are like, doesn't that mean anybody can participate? I say, yeah, so doesn't that mean disability affects our whole community? Like, let's have that conversation, ooh, right? But one of the first artists, when we were able to go in person, came up and put down this stack of like beautiful artwork. And she said, I'm not really an artist. I just do these to deal with depression. I don't know if they're even good enough to sell, but like, what do you think? And I was like, whoa, okay, let's unpack all of that. And so I said, well, you made them and they're art, so you are an artist. And thank you for sharing your story about your depression. And it's up to you if you want to share that with the public. And they're absolutely good enough to sell if you want to sell them. And you know what I mean? Like, we just had to go through like all of the onion layers of her baggage of not being good enough. And then we had an artist showcase every year. We're not doing it this year, but in these showcases, I've started noticing that people will literally sit up taller, and they'll actually look people in the eye, and they'll start to like last year we had one artist that when he dropped off his art, he was stimming. It's what's neurologically what it's called, where you're like giving yourself like stimulation to be able to handle your environment because of either the overstimulation or the stress and anxiety. And then during the showcase, he felt comfortable enough that he took one of the price tags and put it on himself and was joking about somebody taking him. And so it was fantastic. It was so much fun. And seeing that transformation happen in a supportive environment was just, that's one of the reasons why I decided to keep doing it. But in the context of this kind of an exhibit, I see that same thing happen in the same kind of transformation that can happen from just creating the space for everyone to be. And it's so important. I think it's so wonderful. And then to put it all together, like I don't have that big of a reach, and I don't know about all the other artists, but when you put us all together and then you have all of our different contacts all joining in the same exhibit, then everyone can kind of get a perspective that individually doesn't make that big of an impact, you know? And so like with the disability art show, people will walk around and be like, oh my gosh, people are so talented. I never realized people do this for a living. I thought people with disabilities that make art just have hobbies to take up their time, or, you know, that kind of whatever. And so like with me, some people will say, oh, so you just do this, you know, like to use up your time, or oh, you just do this to connect with culture. That's nice. But then when you put it all together, that makes an impact. And I'm rambling, so I'll stop.
What was the question again? Sorry, I was really into what you were saying, Annette.
No worries. I mean, the microaggressions are real and they cross boundaries. It is annoying. The question was, how do you feel art can sort of help this transition of sort of unpacking and unlearning, you know, these microaggressions and other barriers to us as creatives?
When I was listening to Annette, what you were saying about, you know, like sitting a little bit taller and, you know, feeling like your things are, you know, very valuable. When you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, that was me. I felt like that. Um, I was very, very nervous about, you know, selling any of my work for a while, because my grandmother, if you don't know about Yupik Inuit ways of teaching how to sew or doing a craft, you know, it's a lot of it is, you know, you have to have good vibes and good thoughts and good love and good energy. But when it comes time to critiquing your work, it's very strict. I've had so many times when my grandmother ripped out my things and said, you know, I'm doing this because I care about you. Because a long time ago, it used to be literally life or death. And a lot of that took me down. And she'd tell me, you know, while I'm sewing, while I'm beading, while I'm doing any kind of art, you know, to have good thoughts in my head and good, you know, good energy. And that's what I would focus on. Um, and that would bring me back to a good place. And it really, whenever I do any kind of art, it really helps me feel balanced. And then whenever people, to me, like when I made, like for example, when I made these, I was like, oh, the square and the hexagon. Oh, maybe people won't like it. Maybe it's too flashy. Maybe it's too big. And then I've had so many compliments on them. And so actually decided to keep them myself, and name them after my brother, who's had a lot of growth. And so just to celebrate him, you know, uplift him, I was able to name these after my brother Ayaginach Stanley because of all the great growth he's experienced, and try to uplift him in that way. And um, you know, people telling me my artwork is worth something has helped built me up. And I do suffer from like a lot of anxiety and depression and a lot of things. And I was talking to my therapist the other day, and she had asked me a question that I've never ever thought of in my life, and it just made sense to me. I told her, well, I feel like I'm in the calm before the storm. And she's like, what does that mean? And I said, I'm in the place, I'm in the headspace before I, you know, fall back into my depression. I can feel it, it's coming. And she said, what do you do to get out of it or take care of yourself while you're in that space? I said, well, I bead and I sew, and I make sure that every time I bead or every time I sew, it's good energy and good prayers and good medicine that goes into everything that I do, so I can stay out of that bad place. And she said, oh, well, did you make sure you got your beads? Did you make sure you got enough needles? And she's like, did you make sure you got enough thread? And I was like, what? She said, yeah, because, you know, when you're in that bad place, you're not going to want to go to the store. You'll stay there and you'll stitch yourself back together. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've never thought of that. So, if you find art as a way to take care of yourself, if you paint, make sure you get some paint before you hit the bad place. If you bead, if you do jewelry, make sure you have everything you have, because so you can pull yourself out of that bad place. To me, that's how it's helped me, and hopefully that by me opening up about this, hopefully someone else can make sure they got the beads together.
Thank you.
That is awesome. Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, I'm taking over the host's role. No, just kidding. Have your prices gone up? Because that's something that's happened with a bunch of people and with myself too. Like as I feel better about my art or as something sells, I used to price it just for, I'll just get my materials back. And now at this gallery, the gallery manager always like yells at me like, you have to raise your prices. And then I do, and then it sells. And I'm like, oh, it was worth it? So I'm just curious, has your prices gone up?
A little bit. I was talking to my grandmother yesterday. Luckily, she's here, not in our village during this pandemic. And I showed her one of my earrings that I made. They were named Anat to bring awareness to the mothers, because Anat means mothers, and to bring awareness to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. But she asked me about how much I priced them at, and I was like, well, I priced them at this because this and this. She was like, what? That's it? But in like a very grandmother big way. She's like, oh, and she looked at me and she kind of like gave me the side eye. It was more like, that's it. That's all. Okay. She's like, I think you should charge this because this is how much this is worth. She's like, and I think you should charge. This is the bottom. This is what they're worth. But she's like, maybe you can skim off with this. But she's like, that's too low. And that really helped me boost my confidence. But yeah, they did a little bit after I realized, okay, maybe I'm not pricing them well. Like you said, I sat a little bit taller and realized it's worth something.
I know exactly that same conversation. It wasn't my grandmother, although thank you, Grandma, for having that moment with Payuk. One of my friends actually yelled at me for a good hour because I usually sell prints, and printing and the quantity of prints that I get is like really low. It's like, sometimes it's like $10, sometimes it's $50, and it's like for a lot of them. So I'm like, yeah, it's not $5 a print. It's not. She's like, what? Here's a $100 bill, and left. I'm like, I can't take that. So yeah, I feel the tension, because it's kind of weird because you're thinking about it of like, these are the materials, this is how much it costs, this is what I'm using and stuff like that. You're not even thinking about, the energy and the time and the labor and the love that goes into it. And also, making, I guess what has helped me think about it a little bit differently is less about making a profit just for profit and making a profit to invest back into that craft. What other materials can I try with now this new source of income that I have? Or this, instead of like $50, I have like $175, and maybe I can splurge a little bit on the Copic markers. Maybe I can get a little bit, the wax paper instead of the same paper. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so we try to upgrade ourselves and invest it right back into what fuels us and what fills us. So it's kind of how I like to think about it. With the remaining time that we have, I have 2 more questions for you. The first one, who inspires you the most for your art?
So in the beginning, the people that inspired me the most were my siblings. Actually, I have um, my sister Naluga. She's probably turning real pink right now because I'm saying her name on here. And my sister Agnakuluk Amber, she's a great mother. And my brother Ayaginach Stanley, and my brother Seneca. He's probably mad that I'm calling him Seneca, but your name is Seneca Sean. And my older brother, Sam, who we had who had passed away a few years ago. They were my inspiration for a while, and I would do things because my dad, also my dad and my mom and a lot of people, my whole community actually. But my dad would say things like, he was a drill sergeant, in his life, and he'd say, "You can't be scared. No fear, no fear. You're scared." And he's like, "Fear is just something in your head. It's not real. It's not real. You just do it. You just count to 3, and you say 1, 2, 3, go, because you have to be the one to go. You have to be the one to jump." And he'd say, and I say, "But so and so's not doing it." And he'd say, "Well, you want to do it? You go do it." And then I would do it, and but now that I'm a little bit older and I'm an auntie now, I love being an auntie. Um, I want my nieces and nephews and all my cousins and all our communities, and especially the the um the Afro Yupik, the Afro Inuit people who feel like, how I felt when I was younger, lost, and who um may not have had the image in their eyes about, like, maybe they could do it because they when I was younger, I didn't see anyone that seemed like me doing these things. Like, for example, I got facial tattoos because I want my niece and nephews to do it if they want to do it. I don't want them to be scared to do it. I want them to see that, there's someone else out there doing it that looks like them. Um, so I feel like just people in my communities, a lot of the little people, the smaller people, and the people who feel like that they've been lost, just like I was. I just want them to be able to see someone doing it and believe that, oh, they can do it and they are worth it.
Yeah, I love that. For me, my family was also really inspiring to me. I started by just making jewelry as presents for people and presents for my mom. And I didn't know for a long time that there's a history of being creative in my family. And I'm named after my father's mother. And she used to, she was an immigrant from Italy and used to make all of the clothes and hem everything and was really good with a needle. And my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, did all kinds of like needlepoint needlework. And so she kind of shared some stories of growing up in Haiti before she came to the United States, and like selling that to be able to have dinner. And that whole idea of art for survival, and it's shifted, and I kind of think of myself as lucky that I get to be able to have this art be something that is supplemental, instead of, if I don't sell my art, I can't pay my rent, or I can't have dinner tonight. And so it's changed a little bit over time. I don't have to hem my pants or hem someone else's pants to make a living. Now I can choose to hem my pants or get them hemmed or whatever, or they sit in my closet. But it's kind of made me think about how art has shifted over time, and how historically people through art have been exploited, and so much of that pain being transferred and transformed into joy is still exploitive when it's not fair. And so for me, in terms of like the idea of lifting people up, and the idea of representing what someone may not know exists in the world, because we all feel like we're alone, but really there's a lot of us, we just don't know it. I try to add that little extra bit of energy of like, what would a rich white male do? I'm going to price my art for that. Like, you know what I mean? Just a little bit of that. Like,
that's what my mom says.
For
like
real? I love it.
What would someone,
Exactly.
that you see as professional. She's like, but you're a professional too. I'm glad.
Exactly. And so we can redefine what professional means and still make sure that we can make a living off of it. And so it's just like the positive part, but just like a little bit of snark in there, just a little bit is it kind of makes it more fun.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay. With our final time together, I want to ask you this. To the young creative that is just like you, that's watching or maybe feeling you right now, what do you want to say to that young creative that was you or that is you right now, that may be watching or listening?
Touche. So to younger me or anybody else out there, get in touch with me if you want some support. I think that going back to a different question about what I'd like to see in the community a little more, mentorship is so important. And in Native culture, it's the elder that reaches out to the youth that has the potential. But in white culture, it's the youth that asks for the mentorship of the adult. And so I know that for me, with some things, that's kind of gotten me a little confused about, do I ask? Do I wait to be asked? What do I do to be able to try to learn from experience or have opportunities? And so that leads to that kind of like angst. And so I'm just saying, if anybody wants to participate in the art show that I'm doing next year, and you have a year to get your stuff together, or if you want to have any questions, or if you want someone to walk the path with you, like, get in touch with me, and I'm all for it. And never give up, never surrender. Always do it. Always do your art.
Brianna, and that it's crazy that we have so many like intersections in our life. It's just crazy. It's really crazy. But I believe, that the universe brings people together that are meant to meet each other and uplift each other. But one thing that I would say to someone who's like us, or maybe not exactly like us, but a little bit like us, and needs that little push, is that my grandpa always said, "Kaya you choose ngay datan." No one will live for you. So if you don't do it, then who's gonna do it for you? Nobody. And count to three and just go. That really has helped me a lot in life, but for good things. Go for good things. But for people in our communities, our elders would say, go steal, which means, which what they mean is go steal knowledge. Um, so like if there's a person, like there's an elderly person that you want to learn how to sew from, or if you want to learn how to, do a specific like cutting steel, they would say, go over to their home and say, "Hey, I'm here to sweep your floor or do your dishes." I don't know if that works in the city setting all the time. Maybe here you'd invite someone to, for a coffee, maybe send them a note saying, you'd like to meet, maybe after COVID. But, a video call would work too. Just find your way. It'll make you so much happier when you're there. Like the before, it was really scary. But you could either just like run to it or run away from it, because those are your only options. The before is really scary, but once you're there, it'll feel really great. It won't feel great all the time, but once you're there, it'll feel very great. So just count to three and just go. And bring your cousins with you, bring them along. They probably want to do it too.
He's like, you're not rich unless they are. That's how it is. And into young me or young people like me who are watching or not watching but will watch, keep doing it. You never know who is looking at you, and you never know who needs to see you. So if you are out there and you are questioning your creative ability, questioning whether you are an artist, congratulations, you already are. Every single artist goes through that same process. So if you're asking yourself that same question, you're already here. And to continue to do it, it's important. You're given that ability and that gift and that vision and that, drive for a reason. So don't waste it, and don't let somebody to define what that is for you. You define what artist is. You define what professional is. You define what success is for yourself. So just trust in that reason and go do it. Because then you might be on a BAM exhibition next year. Who knows? I don't know what the future is, but I'm just saying, like, you don't know. So just do it. You know what I mean? Trust in it. It's happening for a reason. Well, we are at 7:05, and I just want to express so much love and gratitude to both of you, Payuk and Annette. Thank you so much for spending the evening with me and for sharing a little bit of your life and your wisdom, and of course your pieces with me and the BAM team and all the folks that are watching. For folks that are still with us, please, please, please support these wonderful artists. We have their donation information as well as places where you can look at their pieces in the comments below. If you haven't seen their artwork in the art exhibition yet, we have the link to that exhibition already in the comments as well. Please reach out to BAM team if you have any questions, want to know anything further, about any of the artists that, are on this call or coming in our later panel discussions later this month. With that, that's all the questions I have for you all. If you want to give some last final loves or plugs or words of wisdom, more than welcome to. And if not, I just give you a good evening and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Alyssa and Annette, for this great evening. The time went by so fast, and it's just so interesting how we have so much in common, and we all are from different places and different families, but yet so similar. It really helps uplift me as a Afro-Indigenous woman to realize, we all come in different shades and different areas, and we still, we're all still human. And I really appreciate all the love from both of you and from Black Alaskan Art Matters, this movement project, and also the Perseverance Theater for making the space. And one more time for the people who want to try, just do it. Don't be, well, you'll be scared a little bit, but just do it. You'll feel better.
Yeah, thank you all so much for your time and energy, and I hope that the people watching were as uplifted as I feel and as you say you feel. And it went by super fast and was so positive. And we should totally hang out after COVID. and yeah, keep on making art, keep doing art, and if whatever the energy is, making art is putting goodness into the world, and it's making sure we're not silenced and we have a voice. So just keep on making art.
Oh my goodness, y'all. I am so moved. I was texting with Irene. Big shout out to Irene Martinko, who is our backstage technician, our director of the tech behind the scenes. So thank you so much, Irene. I was so moved. Thank you for being with us. There were times we were texting saying, I'm crying, I'm listening, and I'm so, I have to lift up. Get your supplies now. Be ready. So when you need to, stitch your life back together. Value yourselves and your creations, right? And some of you said, never give up. And either be and or get a mentor. How wonderful and important. all of this knowledge you all dropped. And then nobody will live your life for you. Count to 3 and go. That was just so powerful. And that was just a few phrases that I managed to jot down quickly. You all, thank you for your vulnerability, your lived experience that you shared. Oh my goodness. What an honor and a pleasure to create space, support space for you all. That's exactly what we were hoping for in this Black-led movement, the Black Alaskan Art Matters. So I hope folks will go to our website where the exhibit is, but also I know we were streaming there along so that, yes, thank you, Irene. There's Irene right on the spot where our showcase is. And you'll also there find more information about how to be in contact with the artists. You might purchase some of their art. I think I'm going, and look, my earrings, I'm going. I love the jewelry. So I'm a fan already. So thank you so much. I'm just going to lift up some announcements. This is a big week at Perseverance Theater. You've all kicked it off for us so beautifully, so powerfully. We have another conversation for BAM. It'll be conversation number 3 at 6 p.m. right here again on our Facebook page, on our website, and on our YouTube channel. And it will be with the writers and the content creators too. So we're just working through featuring all the artists that have been a part of this exhibit. And Mahogany Magnetic, one of our curators, will host that one. And it's so that proves to be another exciting, wonderful conversation. And again, I lift you all up because these conversations have been deep. They're not surface. They're really you all coming forth to really share about your artistry, about who you are. Again, your lived experience. And here's what I love, your analysis of the world. That is missing from the world, and we need it now. So thank you for being so open and honest and willing to share so deeply. So that is Wednesday. Then Thursday, I actually start an acting class. Join us. You can still sign up. We're getting ready, folks. We're going virtual with our projects. And when we're back in person, we want to be ready to go then too. So join my acting class. Alaskans get a very deep discount. So we wanted to honor you all and make sure we're all, it's called Stretch and Flex. We're making sure we're all in good artistic shape. So, and cross-discipline, if you feel you're curious about it, come and join us. Work out. It's for everybody. And then also that same day, a wonderful partner in Houston called the Writer's Block. A.J. McQueen, the executive director and founder, has started 7 years ago this incredible nonprofit organization for spoken word artists from the inner city of Houston. And because we won a little bit of a grant together, we're partnered and we're throwing it down from the Arctic to the southern border. Most people think coast to coast is east to west. Oh, hell no. This is the Arctic to the southern border. Our spoken word artists, our musicians, we're throwing down. And we're doing an exchange with those artists. We're going to be in their evening, and they're coming over. And on the 9th, Friday, they're Thursday, we can tune in there. And then on the 9th, Friday, we will have our own event to voice the vote. This is all in service of supporting folks to register. I think you have 1 or 2 more days to register. And then after that, we're encouraging you to make sure you get to the polls, right? And then just a shout out, we just in our legislation, literally, I think it was yesterday, or it might have been Friday, right before we went to the weekend, we extended the census. Talk about being visible. Make sure you're there, you're counted. That is to the end of October now. So encourage your family, your friends, your cousins, your community members to be sure to go and be counted on the census. If they need help getting to a computer or online, or they need to fill out a card or something, there are places you can go. I think you can go to your post office and you can ask your community leaders. But that is important work. It helps us to get the federal funding we deserve because of knowing how many folks are here. It helps us to get all kinds of resources. So, and I heard recently, Alaska used to be one of the states that the fewest people actually did the census. Guess what, folks? We're tied for number 1. So let's make sure we actually come out on top. That's a great thing to have pride about. So let's get that word out too. And then also, I just want to share, we had In Love and Warcraft, one of our first virtual theater programs, I'm happy to say we're extending. We have more students and more folks who want to see it because they missed that timeline. So October 9th to the 16th, you can still view In Love and Warcraft. And I would love to extend an invitation to our BAM artists and curators. If you are interested, please email us and I will make sure you have a link to see that show. That's our gift to you. It's the least we can do to share our work with you. Also, that exchange of artistry. So be sure to email Irene or Alyssa, and we'll make sure you can view the show too. So we'll be extending that. So lots happening this week, y'all. You kicked it off beautifully. Thank you so much. Again, thank you to Irene for being behind the scenes, making sure this all goes smoothly. And Tina, we'll make sure that you're in one of the next conversations. So deeply sorry that your tech wasn't quite working, but we had you here with us in spirit, and it was inspired. So thank you. With that, oh my goodness, geez, and Chinangeli, what an evening. Take good care of each other. Wear your masks, right? Wear your masks. And we'll see you this Wednesday when we're back here for BAM with Mahogany. And thank you, Alyssa, for guiding us through tonight. We appreciate your leadership and your curation of this exhibit. So everybody, BAM.